Zhao Wei reached the ladder and began to climb the mountain. When he climbed out through the hatch, he found himself in a room where sports equipment was stored. A voice came to him from all sides, saying that on August 8th, a haircut. The boy turned to the side where the eerie voice was coming from. It was a ghost that repeated the same thing, that you should cut your own hair and cut your mother's hair. That mother sews up ugly dolls. Zhao Yi opened the door that led to the gym where the monster was. The boy saw that in the middle of the sports hall, among other vague figures, there was the ghost of a little girl who kept repeating about her haircut on August 8th and was holding a scary doll in her hands. Zhao Yi smiled and walked towards the ghost. Someone from the audience wrote a comment asking what the boy will do. Will he kill the little girl? Stepping closer, Zhao Yi stretched out his hand and stroked the ghost girl's head. He pointed out in his voice that the girl's head was very greasy, that this ghost does not wash her head at all. In the general chat, everyone was confused. Zhao Yi leaned towards the ghost and with a smile asked the girl to tell him how to get to the center of the fog. The girl's ghost looked intently at the boy and then indicated the direction with his hand. Zhao Yi thanked her. The boy went where the ghost indicated. The ghost girl herself croaked in an eerie voice, asking why these stones were talking. She was also confused. Zhao Yi thought to himself that it seems that as long as there is no difference in spirit power, the creatures do not attack humans even if they are touched and attacked. After leaving the sports hall, the boy passed the hall of the building and approached the exit. Opening the door, the boy went outside, where the entire school grounds were filled with thick fog. In the mist, Zhao Yi saw several ghosts. These were a woman with a huge mouth, a ballerina without a head, and a deformed man in an apron. The boy entered the fog with the monsters. Zhao Yi walked past various terrifying apparitions. His mental strength was kept at 100+1, which allowed the boy to pass deep into the thick fog. With each step, the fog grew thicker and thicker. It became more difficult to go forward. The most terrifying thing was that the ghosts on his way were getting bigger and fiercer. The corpse of the baby was crying. This eerie cry attacked the boy. Zhao Yi began to bleed. His life could end at any moment. The brown moose couldn't take its eyes off Zhao Yi. The animal's limbs were bleeding and the moose's legs were turning into rot with each passing second. A wound also appeared on the boy's leg from such an impact. It quickly began to rot and a corpse worm began to stick out of it. Zhao Yi continued walking. A cardboard figure was standing in his way, which was completely covered in oil paint. She breathed her curse on Zhao Yi, after which the boy's entire body was covered in blue fire that burned with incredible power. Zhao Yi's emotional state did not change from the beginning to the end. He was injured by various ghosts. There was no hint of pain on the boy's face. In the comments, they began to write that they feel sorry for Zhao Yi. Others wrote that after such injuries, you can recover after completing the quest, but it takes a long time. Some people wrote that Zhao Yi is an unusual person. Then, in the comments, it was noted that the thick fog was beginning to dissipate and they asked where the boy was going. In the midst of the fog, Zhao Yi saw two bloodied and entwined corpses on the ground. Coming closer, the boy thought that these two must be Zhang Ya and Pan Xiao, but it didn't matter who they were. The boy knelt down and used a scalpel to cut off the worm sticking out of the wound on his leg, which was beginning to rot. In the comments, they started asking what kind of worm it is. Someone wrote that if you carefully watch the live broadcasts, you can understand that it is like a joke from the great god Jokan, the god of gluttony. Gradually, the cut worm began to turn into a flower, and after a few seconds, this flower faded. Zhao Yi thought that he needed to get rid of this worm to prevent the leg from rotting further. He bandaged his leg and went on. The boy saw a yellow chest standing on the ground ahead. Zhao Yi reached for it and opened it. It turned out to be a music box with a golden pagoda in the middle. The melody from the box alarmed the monsters around, and Zhao Yi abruptly closed it. Suddenly, the fog began to thicken around the casket. From this mist, a huge and terrible monster head with burning eyes began to form, which looked at the boy and laughed. It was a demon that, opening its mouth, began to suck ghosts into itself along with the fog. After a few seconds, everything quieted down. Zhao Yi looked at the box. A system message flashed to him congratulating him on completing a hidden mission. that he was able to destroy all the cursed school's spells one by one. Rewards will be given to the player after completing the main quest. The system also congratulated Zhao Yi on receiving the hidden item, Pandora's Box. Somewhere in the destroyed city, with a cup of coffee on the table, sat the vice president of one of the guilds. This is the man who has been watching over Zhao Yi all the time. There was a knock at the door, and he invited a visitor. A stocky man with scars on his face entered the room. It was a member of their guild named the Demon Bar. He entered the office and, approaching the table, greeted the vice president and asked what he wanted. The vice president motioned for the man to sit down and asked if he had any dealings with that guy. Bar, sprawled on a chair, asked who exactly they meant. The vice president called Zhao Yi's name. The man straightened up on the chair, his face changed, and he asked the name once more. The vice president placed a folder with information about the player Zhao Yi in front of the Demon Bar. He called the man another nickname for the boy, Angel of Oblivion. Bar tensed at the name. He asked the vice president if Zhao Yi was also participating in the game. The vice president confirmed and asked again if he knew him. The man clenched his teeth and said that the vice president probably knows that there is one disease in their family, but he prefers to call it a gift. Bar said the bloodlust runs in their veins, and that hasn't changed over many generations. That is why his father, Kapal, became an arms dealer, because only with him, blood, death and crime come into a person's life. The man added that his father had the most exceptional talent he had ever seen. His father took part in many wars and killed several thousand people, both women and children. The father was known as the king of weapons, and the man grew up with a huge dream to surpass him. But that was before Kapal met the Angel of Oblivion. The vice president noted that Kapal was able to cure the disorder that was related to the desire to kill, right? Bar shuddered and said it was a shame. It was a real shame for him. The desire to kill was embedded in their genes. Was it possible to get rid of it? The man slammed his fists on the table and shouted that he could not accept his father's decision. Bar shouted that his father used to be the king of arms, the right hand of war, and the highest link in the food chain. And suddenly, he becomes a good guy who spends the whole day fishing and playing chess. The veins on the man's face swelled from anger. He continued to shout that this Angel of Oblivion did not heal his father, but brutally killed him. The vice president, putting the cup on the table, asked the man to calm down. He asked if he knew anything about how Zhao Yi had treated his father. Bar exhaled and calmly replied that his father had kept everything a secret. And although they spent a lot of time together, the treatment itself actually went very quickly. Then the man grabbed his head. He noted that Zhao Yi had cured his father of his killing disorder, perhaps within a day, perhaps even within an hour. Bar began to shake again. He said his father became a different person almost instantly, and he felt it right away. The vice president asked if the man keeps in touch with him. Bar replied that they had only spoken once. The vice president asked how it was. Suddenly, the man shook even more. Horror appeared on his face. He said that he was scared. The vice president was amazed by such a reaction, and by the fact that such a stout and strong man could be so frightened by something. The vice president thought about how he would feel if the killer, who once thought of himself as the top of the food chain and who displayed extreme cruelty, actually accepted all of his actions and fears. The vice president clarified whether Zhao Yi was cruel enough to make others fear him. Bar wanted to say something at first, but then he began to breathe deeply and get angry. Looking at the vice president, the man asked where Zhao Yi was. Zhao Yi was currently a member of the Scavenger Guild and added that the man knew that despite the fact that this guild had few members and low success rates, but... The vice president fell silent. He changed the conversation and said that the man should rest first. After all, in a month, the tide of demons will begin, and then he will be able to raise his level. Therefore, Bar should make good use of this time. Maybe he can get rich hunting demons. The man said he understood everything. Leaving the office of the vice president, he declared that he would do everything to wash away this shame from his family. At that moment, Zhao Yi returned to the room with Chen Qiong's body, where Yang Ling Ling was waiting for him. The girl returned and greeted the boy. She said she was already starting to think he was... And then she looked at his terrible wounds. Zhao Yi hurried ahead of her and said that he was fine, but he wanted to use these experimental tools to cut out the part of the leg that was rotting himself. The girl was shocked, and the boy approached the table on which various tools were lying. From a saw and an axe to a scalpel and surgical scissors. Zhao Yi threw his rotting leg on the table, and in both hands he took 2 saws and began sawing off the leg. The expression on his face was calm. In the general chat, they were sure that this guy is not a person. How can you amputate a limb yourself, even without anesthesia, and at the same time not even look at it? When Zhao Yi finished and bandaged his limb, poor Yang Ling continued to throw up in the corner of the room. The boy sighed in relief, wiped his face with a napkin, and with a bright, happy smile said that he was now ready to meet X2. Yang Lin objected because the mission was over. Why was it necessary to take such a risk to communicate with him? Zhao Yi replied that there is an old proverb about politeness. He looked at the girl and said with a sly smile that they had put such a spell on him that he lost his leg. And the guy thinks it would be rude of him not to give them back in full. The girl speculated, did Zhao Yi want to use the X2 to hunt down the organization behind Li Shen and the others? The guy confirmed. Yang Ling said she didn't think it was possible. She invited Zhao Yi to think for himself that it would take enormous strength and resources to create such a monstrous project. Surely there are people of amazing strength and power behind this, that these are not just experiments. Zhao Yi, finding some kind of stick, was able to get closer to the flask in which Chen Chong was. The boy said that precisely because of this, he wanted to penetrate the very essence of this creature in order to teach it. The girl asked if he wanted to teach X2, and why exactly does he want to teach him? Zhao Yi smiled at the girl and said that he wanted to teach him something very important. At these words, Yang Ling felt uneasy. 3 days later, after the end of the main task, X2 did return to the laboratory. Yang Ling was waiting for the monster, pointing a gun at it. The girl was shaking with fear, but the monster did not pay any attention to her and simply passed by. What surprised her very much? X2 headed straight for Zhao Yi, who was heckling at him at the end of the room. The monster bowed low to Zhao Yi. Yang Ling's eyes popped out of their sockets in shock. Probably the same thing happened with the viewers who couldn't even write anything in the comments. Zhao Yi smiled happily. Finally, messages appeared in the general chat in which the audience did not understand what was happening and why the boy taught the monster. Others were delighted and wanted to learn this too. The monster stood and stared at Zhao Yi. Then it growled something at the boy. With the same contented and happy smile, Zhao Yi told the creature that lest he forget to smile. The monster actually smiled back and disappeared. At the same time, near the entrance to the school territory, almost an army of special forces gathered, armed, equipped with equipment and supplies. A commander was standing on one of the cars. A soldier approached him and began to report that the preliminary investigation revealed that the curse of Shishan Middle School had indeed been lifted long before they appeared. However, they could not find a single living person. The commander said it was wonderful. He ordered Group A to comb through everything there one more time, and after entering the laboratory, if they discover something strange, let them report it to him immediately. Having accepted the order, a group of soldiers who were armed went into the thick fog. In the middle of the fog, they came closer to one of the buildings of the school when they suddenly felt something approaching them. The soldiers looked around as something jumped over their heads. They looked at each other and asked if anyone saw what it was. Panic began, and then the sounds of gunshots began to ring out. At this time, Zhao Yi was preparing for teleportation. He received a system message with congratulations that he has arrived at the School of Fear quest. He completed the main task, to survive in high school for 7 days. He also passed 2 hidden tasks. His history research level was 60, his world research level was 100. He received SS. Rewards, 75 XP, a dead doll, 8,000 points, including live popularity points, and he also acquired 2 items, Pandora's Box and T202, which is under development. After reading this message, Zhao Yi thought about the fact that the history research level was 60 and the world research level was 100. He thought that this was due to the fact that he finished the quest early. Not a few people gathered in the Pokidki Guild. Something happened and they discussed this event. Liu Joking stood aside drinking wine, waiting for the winner of the quest. Zhao Yi appeared. She was the first to congratulate him on the successful completion of the quest. The woman said that she had already watched his performance live, where everything was just wonderful. The guy complimented her as if she and anyone else could have easily coped with this quest. Zhao Yi asked Sister Liu what happened at the end of the room. Why did so many people gather? The woman said that it was nothing special, just a dead person. She added that later the boy will understand that this happens often. Zhao Yi thought to himself that judging by the calm expression on Sister Liu's face, she had experienced many such scenes. The guy said he wanted to go and see what happened there. The woman replied that he should not restrain himself. Zhao Yi approached the crowd and began to make his way to the middle through the large number of worried people. When he was able to get closer to the middle, he saw that people had gathered around a mutilated corpse whose arms and legs were twisted. After taking a closer look at the mutilated body, Zhao Yi understood that it was not an ordinary death, but the result of an enormous force. The boy approached the corpse and, taking it by the shoulder, turned it around to see its face. It was a man, his eyes were open, and a smile froze on his face. The crowd was frightened to see the face of the deceased. Zhao Yi ran his hand over the mutilated body and noticed that all the bones were missing. He also noted that, most likely, the killer removed all the bones through the wound on the back without leaving a single trace. The boy also thought that either a doctor or a butcher could pull out the bones so elegantly. But judging by the cuts left, it was possible to assume that the butcher was the criminal. Zhao Yi moved slightly away from the corpse. He turned to the crowd and saw among the people a girl holding a bottle of soda in her hands. He asked the girl to lend him a bottle. The girl calmly handed over the bottle. Then the boy said out loud that one carbonated water would not be enough, that he still needed one egg and preferably a hard-boiled one. Suddenly, a man spoke up from the crowd and said that he had just boiled eggs and could now bring them to the boy. The crowd quieted down. They all looked at Zhao Yi in surprise. However, they whispered why he needed carbonated water and a boiled egg. Can they help in any way? Finally, Zhao Yi was brought a boiled egg. The guy cleaned him, and the crowd on the side watched very carefully everything he did. The boy looked carefully at the egg. People in the crowd held their breath in anticipation of further action. All of a sudden, Zhao Yi just popped the egg into his mouth, chewed it, and then washed it all down with soda water and belched loudly. The boy explained that he only ate potatoes for several days in the dungeon, but boiled eggs were so tasty to him. The crowd was shocked and began to riot. They thought that the boy would solve the case. How dare he deceive them because of the desire to eat? The little girl cried and complained that she had exchanged her points for this soda, but she herself did not even have time to take a sip. Zhao Yi was indifferent. He calmly returned to his room 404 and collapsed on the bed with a sigh of relief. The boy opened the game menu with his characteristics, which indicated that he was level 3, strength 2500, items, Elder Lu's real estate certificate, Pandora's box, dead doll, T202, and shotgun. Life 2020, strength 16, mental strength 101, luck 0. Titles: good teacher, dirty player, sadness ghost, spiritual weapon, rusty scalpel. Points 8,000, points purchased, S+, SS, S, field, unknown. After reading this, Zhao Yi turned to the system and asked it to explain something to him. His level increased, but why didn't his strength increase? A system message appeared which said that the player's level affects only the opening of tasks of various difficulties, while not affecting the increase of the strength of the participant. The power level can affect the player's body structure, speed, healing itself, energy, stamina, etc. If a player wants to increase their power level, there are 3, and only 3 ways. The first way, do more basic tasks, get experience points, and add them to the power. The second way is to open mid-levels for bloodlines, phantom limbs, abilities, feats, and so on. The third way, get special gifts in the dungeon. For example, such as his T202. Zhao Yi thought about it and said that it turns out that the level of strength is not as important as the strength itself. Then he also asked the system, "What is the field item then?" The system answered that field refers to a type of specialization that is used to increase the upper limit of some aspect of the player. Currently, there are several main fields: Spirit Field, Firearm Field, Elemental Field, and Strong Body Field. The level of fields is divided into classes: F, E, D, C, B, A, S, Z. Level D is considered the most productive field. Zhao Yi got up from the bed. He tried to remember that he had already heard somewhere about specialization in the field. It seemed to the boy that he had seen something similar on a post-analysis forum. It said that at Level 1, novices can't browse branch fields due to lack of authority, but in general, the firearms field is used for the technique limit. It is also the field most suitable for beginners. In the store, you can mainly find firearms. At Level 2, the firearms field is easier to level up as it's hardly a weak field. That is why it is given to beginners, as it is the most universal. The system then issued a message that Zhao Yi had a high level of mental power, and did he want to choose a mental field? It was noted that the more he works in this field, the more difficult it will be to advance and improve his skills. But, just like the endurance field, once it reaches rank S and above, there will be a complete gap between its power and that of other fields of the same level. Zhao Yi asked the system if the player could only choose one field. The system answered yes, but with the mental values that he had, most likely he will be able to achieve great success on his way. The boy smiled and noted that it was well said. He firmly and proudly responded to the system that selects the stamina field. The game system was silent for a few seconds and then asked the boy if he was sure. After all, he will waste his wonderful talent. Zhao Yi silently activated the stamina field in the menu. The system has booted. Activation has been completed. There was a message that after activating the stamina field, his strength increased to level 18. He can now improve his physical skills through training and fighting. The boy turned back the sleeve of his shirt and saw how the veins on his arm swelled and moved. He lay down on the bed and thought that it was wonderful. He felt the power overflowing him. And he waved his fist in the air a little. Someone knocked on the door. Zhao Yi walked over and opened the front door to see who was there. On the threshold stood a man who was short and full of build. He greeted the boy and asked if his name was Zhao Yi. Zhao Yi said that is how he invited the stranger inside. He thanked and closed the door behind him. The guest sat down on the sofa and introduced himself that his name is Fan Pai and he is also a newcomer to the guild, who is at level 3. Zhao Yi asked what he needed. Fan Pai hesitated for a while and then said that it was nothing special. He just wanted to ask Zhao Yi to take him and his team on the big main task. And hastened to add that he has something to offer the boy. After all, players can trade with each other, and the goods can be points, items, and even deals between different players. Fang Pai said if Brother Zhao Yi agreed to help them complete the main task as a guide, then they would pay him with points. As he sipped his soda, Zhao Yi wondered how many points they were offering. The man replied that each member of the team had 1,000 points. The guy asked if anyone else would be there. Fan Pai said yes. He explained that the big bosses in their guilds are angry at everything, and those who are inside the events are constantly thinking about escaping from the ship. Therefore, beginners have no unity at all, and everyone is basically left to himself. Everyone is pulling each other's strings. New people appear, and there is no clear leader as well as rules in general. In order to survive in the conditions in which they live, he first had to gather a small group of people and live with them until a certain time. Fan Pai sighed heavily and noted that killing each other within the guild was forbidden. Zhao Yi said that it is actually allowed to kill each other, but not in the open. Fan Pai then said that he thought the boy understood that if someone really wanted to cheat someone, there were many ways to do it. And it is easy for strong members of the guild to suppress discontent without even killing the weak in the open. Fang Pai shouted Zhao Yi's name, slapped his hands on the table, and said that on the one hand they came to him because they could increase their team's strength thanks to him. On the other hand, he hopes that they will be able to gain experience from him in performing basic tasks. After all, the rewards for the main tasks are very valuable and inviolable. No one from their guild will be able to take them away. Zhao Yi called up the game menu, opened the description of the main task, and said that the man was right. But he was somewhat curious. The guy said that he assumed that there must be quite a lot of people willing to perform this basic task. So why is he back after completing the mission and the main guild quests are still stuck on guide tasks? Fanpai shuddered. He replied that it was because giving such a difficult task to their guild guide was a bit outrageous. At the moment, 6 groups, 27 people in total, tried to complete this task, and as a result, none of them survived. Zhao Yi asked if the secret task was difficult too. Fan Pai replied that they went to the forum to look at other guilds' tasks. For the most part, they are easy, but the income from them is 0. And there are very few guilds like theirs that have 3 talent points for the guide task. For such tasks, where generous rewards are issued, but it is extremely difficult to complete them. Zhao Yi asked if this meant that the guy outside had just died while doing the guide's task. Fan Pai said yes. He added that the guide's task is to find food and water. In order to complete these tasks, you must first go to the grocery store and the butcher's shop, which are located on the train platform. However, to complete the quest, you must complete 2 games with the butcher's ghost and the clown. After the player beats them, 2 story scenes will most likely be unlocked. The ghosts of the butcher and the clown will also move from neutral players to allies of the winning guild. Players get access to unlimited food and water. Fan Pai pointed out that the guy from outside, that even he lost, because a ghost butcher took his bones to make soup from them, and his body was carried away by his teammates. Zhao Yi smiled as he said it was interesting. He also asked how many were on the team and when they were going to start. Fan Pai replied that their team would consist of only 5 people. In addition to him and Zhao Yi, the team will include the cute Tian Tian, who is not quite mentally healthy, the beautiful Bai Shui, a prostitute in the past, as well as the simple and honest Uncle Lei Han. As for the task, they are ready to leave at any moment. It all depends on when Zhao Yi has free time. The guy got up from his seat and asked to give them the following: that they need to get out as soon as possible. Look at everything and feel, so to speak, the situation. After some time, the 5 players went to the task. They walked along the highway to the train station. Fan Pai pointed to the tunnel that went through the mountain and said that the entrance was ahead and that there must be someone else there. Entering the tunnel, the team saw 3 boys. 2 of them were terrified and shaking with fear, while the third sat quietly and smoked. Fan Pai turned to a boy named Xiang Weishan to ask, "What is the situation inside?" Xiang Weishan raised his head and looked at Zhao Yi, who had walked over with the Tian girl Tian Ta with the woman Bai Shui. He smiled and asked if it wasn't the same number 1 and had he also come for his share? Until Xiang Wei as Chan rose to his feet, 2 more boys approached Zhao Yi. One is bald and the other, on the contrary, has blonde hair. They angrily asked how Zhao Yi had the courage to come and steal the reward from their senior boss. Zhao Yi was quick to reassure the boys that he understood that this was a very generous reward and no one wanted to share it with others. He asked if they had ever considered that this might just be a secret mission, that there are still many tasks and awards ahead. What if everyone stops here? Then no one can go back. And he added that it would be better to get rich together or to starve to death here. The boys looked at each other and thought. Xiang Weishan, putting aside his cigarette, looked at Zhao Yi with a serious expression and said that if he wants to go, then let him go, and don't let others lose their chance. He added that many people have already died on the task, and this is good for them. The boy also said that he could tell them some rules of the clown game. The game Clown requires about 3 people to enter it. Together with the clown, the participants take turns playing rock, paper, scissors. 1 person can compete up to 10 times. Before striking, both hands of the players are covered with a black cloth so that it is not possible to spy on who won. The person who loses the round will have one of their fingers cut off. To win, they need to beat the clown 3 times out of 10 in rock, paper, scissors. If the player fails to win 3 times in a row, the clown will push them off a cliff into an ominous grocery store. No one knows what kind of horrors actually take place there because whoever gets there once will never return. After the previous participant finished playing and died, having failed, it is the turn of the next one. Then, the score of the game is reset and everything starts over. Xiang Weizhan noted that in addition, they learned that the clown was deliberately counting down the 3rd and 6th rounds. Fan Pai said that if you follow this rule, The 9th or 10th time will most likely be a normal game of notes, so I've guessed that only 3 victories are enough. Fan Pai then asked the boy why he had not yet completed the task himself.